So my USPS informed delivery email says I have a letter today from Bob Hole. It's January 13th, 3 days to get from Arizona to Texas. So let's turn this thing around, see what we have. All right, a lot of stampy stuff today. Swan Philatelics, Mystic Stamp, Larry James from Stamporama, Bob Hatch. Hey, but where's I'm Bob? There he is. All right, nice haul today. See you back at the swamp. All right, like I said, I got a bunch of philatelic mail today, starting with Mystic Stamp. This is just junk mail, but I'll see what they have to say. It's a colorized Kennedy half for the Tribute to Columbia, January 16th to February 1st, 2003. All right. Next, I haven't given them my change of address yet. So, Swan Philatelic Imports, that's where I keep getting those Kiloware bundles that I made videos on earlier. This will be their latest price list. And I'm hoping to make another order with them soon of a worldwide mixture, which I can review here. Anyways, I'll look at that later. I'm looking forward to that. As I said earlier, that's from Bob Collects Stamps. That is the subject of this video, the Swap and Research Challenge. But before I get to that, let's see what else we have. This is from Larry James. He's a member of the Stamporama online stamp club, and the club has an auction board which I have been utilizing greatly recently. And this one consists of many Spain mint never hinged stamps that he removed from album pages. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, about 40 pages worth of stamps that he removed. And then there's a few 1920s Swiss airmails that I got for good measure. I'll look at that later. And let's see, there was another one. Getting it mixed up. This is from a HipStamp dealer named Bob Hatch. He goes by the name Buy Bob, B-U-I Bob. And look at these. Oh yeah, these were, I ordered a bunch of postally used Israel with tabs. As you probably know, Israel, when they produce their sheets, they produce their sheets of stamps, and along the bottom row, usually the bottom, in the margin, the non-postal tabs at the bottom will either have text inscriptions or illustrations pertaining to the stamp. Those are called tabs. And for mint stamps, since there is only one row of stamps with tabs, they demand a premium over stamps without tabs. For some reason, I haven't really seen premiums attached to used stamps with tabs, which doesn't make sense, since people would more likely be to just rip the stamp off the sheet, not caring about the tab. But let me give you an example here. Oops. So here we have a used stamp, and this lower half is a non-postal label that's called the tab, and it's got descriptive text on it. So anyways, got a bunch of those. Okay, now for the subject of this program. But first, let me tell you once more about the Internet Philatelic Dealers Association. I don't want to scare you off, guys, he's going over that again. But listen, it's a jungle out there. There's so many shady dealers who, not just shady dealers, but inexperienced dealers, fly-by-nighters or weekend warriors, someone who's just inherited their grandfather's collection and they just put it up on HipStamp because it's so cheap to list there, and you never know really what you're going to get. IPDA, we're committed to bringing you a quality selling experience. We have standards of listing, of showing the illustrations, the scans of the stamps, and the descriptions, and we're totally against any kind of fake stamps, not just counterfeits, but replicas that are made. Those don't do any good for the hobby. So we're trying to get collectors to know that when you see the IPDA logo on a dealer's website, you're going to be able to trust that dealer, that he's giving you honest descriptions and fair prices, and he'll give you good professional service. So, okay, I don't want to, drive you away from the program now. So please check out the link below, ipdastamps.com. And if you're a dealer, please consider joining the organization and help making the internet safe for stamp collectors. So, like I said, this is for the Swap and Research Challenge that was started by Richard Philatelist and StampCat, in which two YouTubers will send each other a stamp or a set of stamps, and we are supposed to research it and report on what we found. So, I'm Bob has sent me a small mixture of Spain, a definitive set depicting General Francisco Franco, who ruled over Spain for several decades in the last century. So, and I don't know much about him, except for what I just told you. So I'll research him and I will get back to you with what I find. So stay tuned. So, who was Francisco Franco? Well, in a nutshell, he was just another tin pot dictator with delusions of grandeur. He was so enamored of the fascist regimes of Mussolini and Hitler and their cool nicknames, Il Duce and the Führer, that he gave himself the nickname El Caudillo, the leader through the grace of God. Now, he was a gung-ho military man, a fierce warrior to be sure. I mean, he was the youngest officer to ever make the rank of captain at the age of 22, and then he was the youngest general at the age of 33. And he didn't take crap from anybody. It's told that when an officer mocked one of his orders one day, he disciplined that officer by putting his gun to his head and shooting him dead right there on the spot. He was short and his voice was a bit high-pitched, and this led him to be bullied during his school years, which perhaps contributed to his vile nature. Early during his military career, he was wounded in the abdomen, and it's believed that this wound led to his lack of interest in sex, to put it bluntly. Although he was married and had a daughter, it's believed that the father of the daughter was actually Franco's brother, and for that matter, the mother was a prostitute. Now, the way that Franco came to power was that, come 1930, Spain was in disarray, socially, politically, economically. There was all kinds of stuff going on, and there were several different factions on the left, several on the right, and none of them could get along. On top of that, the Basque and Catalan regions were itching for autocracy, and someone on the left would assassinate a leader from the right. Someone from the right would take revenge and shoot a leftist leader, and that went back and forth until basically Franco was the last man standing. The leader of the Falange Party, which was Spain's fascist party, got assassinated, and Franco got elected to become the new leader. And since every other leader had been assassinated, they declared Franco the head of state of Spain. And with the aid of Germany and Italy, Franco went on to win the Civil War. Now, that was in 1939, and of course, what's happening now? World War II is flaring up. And while Franco sympathized with the Axis powers, he didn't want to get involved. He kept Spain neutral because really Spain's resources were just, depleted. He had nothing to offer anybody for the war, although he did send a small contingent of Spanish troops to the Russian front for Germany. But he basically stayed out of it other than that. And going back to his high-pitched voice, Hitler once had a meeting with Franco to discuss cooperation for the war. And during that meeting, Franco talked about everything but offering help for Germany. And this irritated Hitler to no end, and he left the meeting, and on his way out, he told his aides, "I never want to speak to that man again. I'd rather have all my teeth pulled out than hear that man talk." And as Franco saw the tides of war turning, he saw that the Axis powers were it was game over for them, and the Allies were going to win. He started buddying up to the Allied countries. It didn't help him that much. After the war ended, Spain was basically shunned by all the other Allied countries after the war. And it wasn't until 1955 that Spain was admitted into the United Nations. Now, Franco was never thought of as a brilliant strategist, militarily speaking. He just let his gun do all the talking for him. And after the war, his leadership of Spain wasn't any better than his military leadership. He ruled by delegation and blame. He delegated his government ministers to carry out and enact his policies. And when they inevitably failed, he would just fire them and just say, "Hey, I had nothing to do with it. It was all his fault." And that's basically how it went for decades. Now, Franco was a monarchist, And he planned for his succession, for when he eventually died, for Prince Juan Carlos, who was the grandson of the previous king, Alfonso XIII, to become the head of state after Franco died. And in November of 1975, that's exactly what happened. Franco died at the age of 82. Bye, Felicia. And his successor was King Juan Carlos I. Now, to keep stability in the country, he promised all the fascist politicians who are, still running the country, that he would maintain their policies. Although secretly, in the back rooms, Juan Carlos was planning with his aides to transition to democracy. And that's another story I'll leave for someone else to swap and research. So, thank you to I'm Bob for that research project. I know a little bit more now about Francisco Franco than I did yesterday, and I hope you do too. In the next episode of TED Talk Stamps, I'll have another top 10 list for you, plus some more viewer favorites. So stick around, and until then, happy stamping!